Good morning, Wareham! Yeehaw! Hey, everybody, we're going on about the independence of Texas. Yeehaw! All right, everybody. So we're going on about the independence of Texas this week and how they fought for their independence and remember the Alamo and all that stuff. So we're going to learn how Texas actually became their own country and then became one of our states. And we're going to learn about that. All right? So come on, little doggies. Yeah! Let's get it. Okay, Unit 4. The nation grows and divides. Imagine living in the United States in 1860. Everyone believes there will be a war between the northern states and the southern states. You must choose a side to fight for in this war. You might have to fight against your own family during the war. You might have to fight against your best friend. Thousands will die during the Civil War. The years between 1821 and 1865 were years of great change. Many Americans moved west. Areas in the west became new states. The problem of slavery also grew. The northern states did not like slavery. The southern states said they needed slaves. In 1861, the terrible Civil War began. What would you have done if you had lived between 1821 and 1865? Would you have moved west? Would you have fought for the northern states or for the southern states? As you read Unit 4, think about what choices you would have made between 1821 and 1865. So that's what the whole unit's going to be to the end of the year, about the Civil War. And then we'll do civil rights after that. But this chapter, we're going to start back to 1821. We'll start with chapter 17, which is basically 1821 till around 1845. We're going to learn about how Texas became a country and a state. Chapter 17, Independence for Texas. Mexico belonged to Spain for 300 years. In 1821, Mexico became an independent country. At that time, Texas was part of Mexico. Moses Austin wanted to start a colony for Americans in Texas. He died before he could start the colony. His son, Stephen Austin, decided to continue his father's plan to settle Texas. Few Mexicans lived in Texas, so the leaders of Mexico wanted Americans to move to Texas. Stephen Austin started an American colony in Texas in 1821. The settlers liked Texas. The land was good for growing cotton. It was also good for raising cattle. African Americans, German Americans, and Asian Americans moved to Texas. Jewish Americans and many people from Europe also settled in Texas. More people from Mexico went to live in Texas. By 1830, there were many more Americans than Mexicans in Texas. People who live in Texas are called Texans. Many Mexicans were angry that Americans brought slaves to Texas. Mexican law said no one could own slaves in Texas. Mexicans wanted the Americans to obey this law, but the Americans did not listen. Mexico's leaders were worried that Texas might want to become part of the United States. In 1830, Mexico made a new law. The law said that Americans could no longer come to live in Texas. Americans in Texas did not like this law. Texans did not like other Mexican laws. They did not like the law that said Texans must speak Spanish. Another Mexican law said settlers must be Catholic. Texans wanted to help write laws for Texas. Mexico would not let the settlers make laws for Texas. The Mexican government became angry with the new settlers. The government was angry that slaves were brought to Texas. It was angry that few settlers had become Mexicans. Few Texans spoke Spanish. Many Texans were not Catholic. Mexican soldiers went to Texas to force the Texans to obey Mexican laws. This made the Texans angry. Some Texans began to fight the Mexican soldiers. Santa Anna was the Mexican president. He led his army against the Texans. In 1836, there were about 180 Texan soldiers in a mission called the Alamo. The Texans used the Alamo as a fort. Santa Anna and about 4,000 Mexican soldiers attacked the Alamo. The Texans were very brave. They fought for 13 days. Santa Anna won the Battle of the Alamo. His army killed every Texan soldier. Some of the Texan soldiers had brought their wives and children to the Alamo. One of these wives was Susanna Dickinson. After the battle, Santa Anna sent her to tell other Texans not to fight against Mexico. Texan leaders met in March 1836 while the soldiers were fighting at the Alamo. The leaders wrote a Declaration of Independence for Texas. This declaration said that Texas was no longer part of Mexico. Some Mexican Texans also wanted an independent Texas. Jose Antonio Navarro was a Mexican who was born in Texas. He was a friend of Stephen Austin. He signed the Texas Declaration of Independence. He later helped write a new constitution for Texas. Lorenzo de Zavala was born in Mexico. He came to live in Texas with his family. De Zavala also signed the Texas Declaration of Independence. He told all Texans to fight for freedom. Sam Houston became the commander-in-chief of the Texas Army. He learned about the Battle of the Alamo from Susanna Dickinson. Sam told his soldiers to remember the brave people who died at the Alamo. On April 21st, 1836, Sam Houston led the Texans against Santa Anna's army. They fought at the San Jacinto River. "Remember the Alamo!" Houston's soldiers shouted as they fought the Mexican soldiers. The battle lasted only 18 minutes. The Texans won. Santa Anna surrendered to Sam Houston. Texas was now free. The Texans called their war against Mexico the Texas Revolution. Texas was no longer part of Mexico, and Texas was not part of the United States. Texas became a republic. A republic is an independent country. Sam Houston became the first president of the Republic of Texas. Lorenzo de Zavala became the vice president. Texans wanted Texas to become part of the United States, but they would have to wait almost 10 more years before Texas became a state. So we're going to learn about more of that later when we get to the Mexican War. Another war. Unbelievable. Yeah, the Alamo is very famous. There are many movies about it. I'm sure you've heard of it. Davy Crockett was there. Sam Bowie. A lot of famous people. All right. So, I hope you have a happy Easter later on this week. And we'll see you next week. All right. Bye.